Again, thank you for joining us today at this historic hearing on digital asset market structure. Like Chairman Johnson, I want to celebrate collaboration on Capitol Hill anytime it happens. And so we're grateful for the House Agriculture Committee for partnering with us in this unprecedented joint hearing in working to craft legislation, and to our Democratic colleagues for working with us through today's unusual circumstances in this joint hearing. What we decide to do in this Congress this year will shape whether or not the digital asset ecosystem has the opportunity to thrive here in the United States. But right now, there's not a workable framework in place for digital asset issuers and intermediaries to be regulated effectively by the SEC or the CFTC. I've heard a few members in this room say that the status quo of existing laws is enough, that crypto firms are just willfully avoiding compliance with the law, and that Republicans somehow are off embarking on a partisan pursuit of sweeping digital asset legislation. But the reason I know that this can't be a partisan exercise is because my Democratic colleagues have been telling me they support common sense legislation for months. For example, just last November, our ranking member of House Financial Services Committee, Mrs. Waters, said, "We need legislative action to ensure that digital asset entities cannot operate in the shadows outside of robust federal oversight and clear rules of the road." Ranking Member Waters went on to say, "It's clear that there are major consequences when cryptocurrency entities operate without robust federal oversight and protections for customers." And my friend, good friend from Massachusetts, the ranking member of our subcommittee, Mr. Lynch, said, "While FTX may be headquartered offshore, the circumstances surrounding its collapse strongly point to the need for developing thoughtful regulation to protect U.S. investors." That's a great point. And since we can't trust offshore crypto exchanges like we saw through the FTX collapse, we want to work on legislation here in the United States for U.S. companies that will follow the rules, protect U.S. investors and consumers, and prevent future chaotic things like FTX from happening again. However, if we fail to provide a functional framework for digital assets in this country, all we're doing is forcing this activity to happen in an offshore exchange rather than in a nicely innovative, properly regulated U.S. working environment. And that will only hurt U.S. investors, innovators, and consumers. Remember, this committee worked in a nonpartisan way to have Sam Bankman-Fried testify last December before he was arrested in the Bahamas. It wasn't our decision to cancel his appearance. But the bankruptcy process will take a long time, and SBF's criminal trial in October could even be delayed. And as long as FTX remains an ongoing issue for the committee, I want to reiterate our commitment on behalf of House Republicans to work with the minority to make sure that that whole situation is investigated and held accountable. However, we can't lose sight of why both Democrats and Republicans have been calling for legislation for months. There's nothing partisan about that. To quote Senator Gillibrand, "Establishing a regulatory framework that spurs innovation, develops clear standards, develops appropriate jurisdictional boundaries, and protects consumers." That's why we're here today. No one here is claiming that crypto should be exempt from rules or that we should create an entirely new regime for it. Instead, we're trying to apply the principle of same risk, same regulation to amend current law to establish a functional regulatory environment. I think the CFTC and the SEC and our consumers will benefit, and I look forward to our discussion today. And I yield back.